In this video, we're going to talk about compressor pedals. I'm going to explain what they do, and then I'm going to show you what I think are the 5 coolest ways to use them. Okay, for starters, this is what a compressor pedal does. It takes the loudest parts of everything you play and then turns down the volume on those loud parts. So the difference between the loudest stuff you play and the quietest stuff you play gets smaller, or the dynamic range of everything you're playing gets compressed. And then once you've compressed it, most compressors also have a final volume control, so you can turn the volume up on everything, or you can turn it down. If you want an example, here's me playing without a compressor, and here's me playing with one. As you can see, the loudest parts of everything I just played, those peaks, those all got squashed by the compressor. Now, generally, I think turning on a compressor pedal just to have this overall compression effect on your dynamic range is not very useful. This is just me talking here, but if I'm just playing guitar, usually I want to be able to differentiate my loudest notes from my softest notes because that's useful phrasing.
Fight!
So I actually don't think that turning on a compressor pedal just for the sake of having it on is the move. I do think there are ways to use compressor pedals that are cool though, and this is the first one. A compressor pedal is not just having this overall effect on your dynamic range over time, it's also doing something very specific every time you play a note on the onset of that note. I'm talking about something that happens like over the course of milliseconds. You play a new note, that note races toward trying to have a life, and the compressor squashes it down. And sometimes that can introduce a telltale thwack sound that can be good. In fact, I have a favorite, the MXR Dyna Comp. I think the thwack sound of the MXR Dyna Comp is the best thwack sound, and that in itself can be a desirable effect, especially for funky guitar playing. And the other thing that's happening here is the compressor will also bring out, if you mute strings and play percussively, that'll get brought out more by the compressor pedal. So playing muted strings and getting that telltale thwack sound together is a very classic funky guitar sound. Pro tip number 2 is this. I said before the compressor pedals have a final volume control, which you can use to boost your whole signal. You can also use that to make your whole signal quieter. So it's like an anti-boost or an underdrive pedal. Like if you set the compressor so that when you turn it on, it makes everything you do quieter, and then you put that in front of a dirt pedal or in front of an amp that's set to break up, you can clean up your dirt pedal or clean up your amp by turning on the compressor. Now, why would you ever want to do that? Well, let's say you have a live show, and for most of your set, you're using distortion, but there's a couple spots where you need to get clean. It probably makes sense to set your amp to be distorted, but if your amp is only one channel, the only way to clean it up is to turn around and start messing with the knobs again. And if you don't want to do that, you can set the compressor to clean it up for you when you turn it on. Another thing you can do is use a compressor like this to simulate the effect of having a guitar that has 2 volume knobs and a pickup selector, like a Gibson-style guitar, where the bridge pickup has a volume knob and the neck pickup has a volume knob. So you can set one to be louder and then switch pickups to get a volume boost or volume cut. If you have a guitar that can't do that, you can use a compressor to fake it. In the example you're about to hear, I'm going to start by playing something with a lot of dirt, then I'm going to step on a compressor pedal and you're going to hear it get clean. And For the example you're about to hear, I'm using the Accountant by Fairfield Circuitry. This is a very good all-around compressor pedal. I'm actually using this compressor pedal on every pro tip in this video, except for the first one, which is when I use the MXR Dyna Comp. If you want to buy either of these, or if you want to buy anything, you can support the channel by using my affiliate links to make your purchase with perfectcircuit.com. Anything you buy with these links will give me a small commission. I'll put them in the video description. Pro tip number 3 is if you put your compressor pedal after a wah-wah, you can let that wah-wah be way more piercing than you normally could, and the compressor will just smooth it out. You can also put a compressor after a filter effect and let the filter be way more resonant or way more harsh than you normally would, and the compressor will just sort of squash it down and make it usable. In the example you're about to hear, I've got 2 guitar tracks. One is a wah-wah that's like very piercing, and the other is a fast chorus effect. It's like so fast it's almost too much. But they're both going into compressors, and in both cases, the compressor just sort of squashes it and makes it sound funky. Pro tip number 4 is if you push a compressor to its most extreme settings, sometimes you can get it to produce this lo-fi result that's cool. I said before that I was using the Accountant for all these pro tips except number 1 because it's a good all-arounder. It is, but I actually think this is its specialty. If you put it to its max settings, this like grainy, dirty, unhealthy effect starts to creep in. That is very cool. It just sounds kind of like fake. And if you've watched my videos before, you already know what I'm going to say, which is that fake is beautiful and good. Pro tip number 5 is if you run a compressor after a reverb or after a delay, you can get some interesting results because as the reverb or the delay is trying to taper off, the compressor will be fighting to keep those notes up, and that can be cool. I think the best way to do this is to use a very fast reverb or delay time with a lot of feedback or a lot of decay. But more than that, you should choose a reverb or a delay that's like already putting a lot of shit on your notes to begin with, like a very drippy spring reverb or like a very hissy analog delay. In the example you're about to hear, I was using the Mood just as a reverb because this has a sort of unusual bit crushy reverb in it. I just ran that into my compressor, and I let the compressor exaggerate all the bullshit.